Hey y'all, Data Guy here. And today I'm coming at you with a customer, or not a customer, sorry, you're not my customers, you're my viewers, but a viewer request video to go over AgentKit and more specifically running their AgentKit kind of build on your local machine. So this is a product basically developed by a company called BCG that is aiming to give you kind of a one-stop shop for designing AI-powered chat agents and kind of just having it integrated natively into Fast API and Next.js. So you have an easy-to-use customer interface, or yeah, customer interface in this case, for interacting with these AI services. So this is a build kit that is designed around LangChain. So I've already had some previous videos on LangChain if you're interested in diving more into what that does. But what this is really for is kind of a framework for quick experimentation with a constrained agent architecture and really a full stack chat-based agent app. So instead of it just being a Python script like I've shown previously, this is meant to be a full application. And this is a pretty modular, you know, plug and play, swap out tech stack, as I said before, with Fast API and Next.js. And you can swap in whatever generative AI tool you'd like to use. So this is really meant to enable you to create really high quality agent apps that can scale up to production grade, minimal viable products really quickly. So if you're looking to develop your own kind of generative AI agent app, this is a good option for you. So what I'm going to do now is switch into my local development in a second and show you how to get this set up locally. But first, to follow along, you're going to want to go to this AgentKit GitHub repo and download this code, and then open it in the VS Code, whatever kind of studio you want for interacting and writing your own code locally. So switch over to that, and I'll see you there. So once you've gotten this folder open locally, so here it should look something like this AgentKit main, and then you'll have GitHub, VS Code, all the different pieces you'll need for this particular application. And to actually get started using it locally, what you'll want to do is number one, add your organization key or API key and your organization ID here. So this is where I'm going to cut away. But the key thing here is when you change this and add your API key and organization, take out this .example tag at the end of your .env file and save it just as a .environment file. And so this will allow us when we execute the Docker build command to just use the credentials contained in this file. And the rest of this you don't have to worry about configuring. Just for now, add your OpenAI key and your OpenAI organization. Then the second thing you want to do is go to this front end directory here. So not Docosaurus, but front end. And then you see we have a similar .env example. And what you're going to want to do here is just change the name again to just .env. So just delete this .example and just save it. So it's DNV within the front end folder, and this will just save all the kind of default credentials for running a front end, just using a regular Postgres database running locally. And then once we're all done with that, we're going to be using Docker Desktop to run it all. So make sure you don't already have anything running in Docker Desktop, which I do, so stop that. And then what we're going to want to do is actually start this up. So to do that, you'll go to your terminal, hit new terminal, and then Docker compose f docker compose.yaml up d. And hopefully this works. And so this is going to start up our local built AgentKit server, and I'll see you once this has finished building. And so in the time it took me to actually shower and toss on a new shirt, it's finally done building. So here we have our actually up and running, and now it's to actually access the front end so we can get a little visual component of what's actually going on here. We can go to localhost. Amazing. And so here, it worked, obviously. What we can do is look at our AgentKit application. And so this is just kind of a basic AgentKit application where I can go, hey, what's your name? And we actually haven't defined any steps. And we haven't, let me see if we can do anything with the general purpose chatbot here. Why am I alive? Yeah, so we'll need to actually set up a chatbot before this can work, but this basically gives us a framework for using a chatbot. So we have just an easy to use interface here where I can just kind of, message the agent. So I wanted to design it myself. Now I can kind of plug in my own information, my own data that I actually want to interact with, and interact with it here within this UI. So let's do that. So to do that, we are going to follow the AgentKit code base helper, where we're going to build an agent that can guide us through a GitHub repository and then have access to two types of information, code base documentation and GitHub repository commit history. So the goal here is to have an agent that can give you any information you need around the contents of the repository, ask it questions, track contributions, and then this agent will use semantic similarity to retrieve that information from the document using retrieval augmented generation, and also generate a SQL query to retrieve information from the GitHub repository history. So we're going to use the GitHub AgentKit repository itself, nice and meta. And the first thing we're going to need to do this is actually load up our data. So if we go into the backend folder of the application we downloaded online, the repo, what we can do is go to app, and then app again, and then tool constants, and then here we can go to tutorial data. And then what we'll do is we can see the tutorial data here is, where is it? Second. Yes, these are all tutorial data kits. So these are just different pages that represent different markdown documents for explaining different parts of this GitHub repository. So what we'll do is we'll take this path and then we are going to load it into the PDF data tool path in the environment file. So if we go back out to our root directory, go to our environment file, and then I guess I'll have to delete that OpenAI API key. Now everyone's seen it, so whatever now. And then what we're going to want to do is scroll down to our PDF tool, make sure this is set to true, and then what we'll do is just type in app, tool constants backend, tutorial data. So now it knows to go to this folder to get our tutorial data, and then our PDF. The next step here is we're actually going to need to add a script that's going to then take this data, turn it into a vector, and then load that commit data into our local vector database. So we're using this also spins up a local PG vector database. So what we're going to want to do is go create a SQL script that will actually run this. So what we'll do is go to the not the backend, but just the scripts folder right here, and then we're going to create a new file. So here we're going to call this toLoad_commits.sql. And what this will do is load the committed data into the database in our Docker container database. Call it toCommits load commits.sql, and then this is just going to load into the Postgres database that we spun up alongside our Docker database. So here we have two loads commits, create table, copy CSV with header, and this is just going to take that CSV and load it into our Docker Postgres database. So you'll notice the CSV path is referenced as slightly different with Docker entry point init BD because we're going to map our local paths to pass within the Docker container when we're running the database service, because we're not actually running this on our local machine. We're running this within the Docker container cluster that was built when we ran that first Docker compose command. So then the next step is to go to your Docker compose YAML file and add the commit history CSV into the container and run the script generating our SQL database to the database container so the data is loaded when the container starts up. So to do that, what we're going to need to do here is we have this to vector, and then here we can do is just basically edit this to include our second commit. So here, back. So here you can see just editing it to include our second script of loading those commits into our Postgres database and then having it all run. So here port 5432, 5432, just all the default Postgres connection details that you could ever want or hope for. And then what this should do is when we restart a container, it will load our data into that container when it starts up. The second thing we're going to need to do is write action plans that allow our agent to actually access this data and use it to help generate a response. So the first thing we're going to do is go to our agents.yaml file, which we're just going to search here. It's just .yaml, agent test.yaml, and then here what we will do is edit these existing action plans for the ones that we're actually going to want to use here. So here what we'll do is edit these action plans here. So instead of being clarify and sufficient information chat history, we're going to have the PDF tool, which is going to answer technical questions about AgentKit. And then the second one is just want to fetch that information around the commit history for a given user. So now we have our tool set up. Everything is ready to cook. So now it's time to put it all together. So to do that, first, we're going to need to edit the tools within YAML. So you'll notice this is pulling from an existing set of tools, which are defined within this tools YAML file. And these are some of the predefined tools that AgentKit comes with, so that you don't actually need to edit or create your own tools for accessing and kind of performing these standard actions. So the only thing we'll need to do here is basically just edit our PDF tool to correspond to the one that is defined specifically for this particular agent. So here, edit PDF tool, and then how do I create a tool? Just specify that this is going to be asking questions on the AgentKit code base and to answer users' questions based on the retrieved relevant documentation. Then what we'll do is add some prompts that will tell our SQL tool to use the structure of our data in our tools.yaml. So what we'll do is select all of this fun stuff. So select everything existing for SQL tool, and then you're going to paste it with the SQL tool specifications in the docs for this. So you can see if we go through here, this is essentially just changing it so that it's going to specifically talk to and reference the GitHub repository for AgentKit that we are using this tool to interact with and query. So here you have some system context information. So this is effectively like you're telling the OpenAI agent to act in this certain way. So giving a set of principles, prompt inputs, prompt outputs, contents, prompt selection, so that it knows that it needs to respond in a certain way that suggests a SQL query. And then we are allowing it basically to write an informed query based on these specifications. Now, lastly, we're going to create another tool that reads the data obtained from SQL tool and then answers the user's question in a text. So to do this, we're going to slightly adjust the base LLM tool, which can be used for just simple LLM calls, and create a new tool called expert tool. So what we're going to do is search for, let's go, actually, I don't need to search this. I can just go into the tools file here, test base LLM tool. And so what we will do here is go down to base LLM tool, rename this to just base LLM tool. And then what we'll do here is copy and paste class base LLM and replace it with the information from the docs. So 1 second. So here we're just going to add a new function that is class base LLM tool. Actually delete all this. So 1 second, undo. And what you're just going to want to do is this async def. So here, there we go. So define this arun function the underscore arun function to take the data retrieved by the SQL tool of previous steps and then add them to the prompt. So this is just extending that base LLM tool to actually take our data that's retrieved when we do that SQL query to get the information around what a user has committed and then add them into our response. Then finally, we are going to update the experts tool in the tools YAML file to actually use some of this new information that we just added in the experts tool. So to do that, we're going to have to go to up here. Let's see, expert tool here. Awesome. So right at the top, of course it was. Then what we'll do is copy and paste this here. And so here we're just going to tell it to use default GPT-4 and essentially just define the same kind of standard, conversation path, but just telling it to give us an example of like, hey, there's a total of 50 commits, prompt inputs, so it just kind of knows what format we are expecting from here. And so this, what's happening is SQL tool is retrieving data from our SQL database, passes that to the next action where the expert tool is tasked with synthesizing an answer using that data, and then can kind of see how this is then going to be used downstream to create complex prompt chains, where, for example, in the first step, information is obtained from 5 different sources in parallel, then summarized, and which is then passed the expert tool, which then can interpret those various data sources and formulate an actual answer. So now, when you go to restart your application, you will see, so if I kill this and then run a Docker compose up, and then it's going to take another 20 minutes to actually start, but this will essentially allow me to restart my thing, have the data be automatically processed, put in my SQL environment, and then uploaded to be queryable within my, environment that I just created. So here, yeah. And so this is basically to run all those different SQL and Python scripts that we just added, refresh all the tools. So make sure you restart after you make all these changes, or just don't start until you made all these changes, because I feel like a sucker for doing that now. And then what we'll do is we have our local host environment all set up and ready to go. And it looks like it actually did take it was much faster on the second start, so kudos to them. And then what we can do is, hopefully this works, you will get some responses like this. So to set up AgentKit, how can I set up AgentKit? Here are some steps. And then it gives you the installation steps, prereqs, everything you need to know to set up AgentKit using this documentation as the base. So hope this was helpful, especially to the person that requested kind of an example setup of AgentKit. Hope you learned something. Hope you go out and make use of this in a real production setting. But above all else, have a great rest of your day. Data Guy out. Peace.